Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk as we gather people of Lakeview to kind of connect, share some information, make sure we're all aware of what's going on around the church. And so I was away last weekend. We've all we're in that groove of comings and goings, and and all kinds of things. And
I was enjoying that. Come on.
I'm like, this is weird. What is sometimes
first, second, and third?
Yeah. No. Oh, this one doesn't even go lower. I was hoping to drop me floor. Anyways, as you guys, church, we love to joke around and have just some fun with each other, and hopefully you've got people in your life that can help you. You just share some giggles and laughs and not take things so seriously sometimes. I once had a school photographer. I can't remember if I told this story. He was like, I think criticizing me because he's like, man, you are way. He started calling me Rocky? No, Stallone? Something like that. And I'm like, what gives? Here I am, this like insecure middle schooler. He's like, you're way too serious. I'm like, dude, you don't even know me. So then I'm pretty sure it wasn't the best school photo. Anyways, as you know, church, we're not always serious, and that's a good thing because I don't think Jesus was always serious.
Well, I was actually thinking about that this morning.
Yeah.
I think sometimes half of our issues in life would be just a whole lot easier if we just took a deep breath and didn't take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah.
I think there's things to take seriously, and I think ourselves is not one of them. I think we need to do more goofy things. It makes life a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah. So, wholeheartedly agree. Anyways, we want to look back on the service because it wasn't a silly sermon. I'm desperate here to grab
And
the
now
segue.
it's time for Silly Sermons with Jeff.
This is the part of the show where Jeff shows a silly sermon.
Oh, man.
Join us this week where we all learn Jesus'
At some point out of the
promise.
52, could one of them just be silly?
That's when we'll get a guest preacher. Anyways, so Jeff, we're still walking through Mark.
Yeah.
And Jesus was posed with what I love that every time people think they've got the best gotcha question ever, Jesus is like,
Yeah.
what about this?
Yeah.
And he totally serious. So I know often there's all sorts of ways in life where we try and get pegged one side or another. Coke, Pepsi.
Yeah.
There is a right side and a wrong
Shaw,
side.
Telus. I think we could,
There's a lot.
NFL, CFL.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Vancouver Canucks.
Edmonton, Calgary.
Edmonton. Yeah.
Right. There's
It's a
all
three-way,
sorts of times where people try and press you into one side or another. Does anyone have? I realize this is putting all of you on the spot. All of you, as if there's more than two, but putting you on the spot. Is there a time where you felt like pressed into one of those either or scenarios that you're like, this is dumb. I have no proper answer here.
Oh, I'm sure there was.
I remember, okay, this is very random. I remember being asked when I first got here, what day would you like to take off?
Oh.
And I actually had a choice, and it was like, I don't know.
Just kidding.
I don't know what the right answer is, and I feel like once I start, I can't stop as well, too.
Yeah. Yeah, there are those where you just don't have enough information or, you feel pressured. I heard somebody...
Sneaky.
Just waiting.
Sneaky.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
That's a word, would you rather. Actually, this is a would you rather. We play a lot of these in youth.
It is,
whatever,
right? Yeah,
like,
we
would
do.
you rather this or this? And
It's a great icebreaker.
Invisibility or fly, right?
Yeah.
I already know Jeff is going to say fly because he's Superman.
yeah, Superman was one of my favorites. I tried. I told you that story. Anyways, I don't think of one automatically, but just I resonate with what you said. Sometimes you're like, once you made the choice, then you're like, oh man, I wish I would have, whatever.
Well, it can be so easy to alienate people, right? And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, I know one time, like, cats or dogs, and
Sorry,
some reason,
dogs, but yeah.
and I agree with that, unless neither is an option. Like a life without allergy medication, right? But like no, I know. And then all the cat people are like, oh, but what about us? And that's not what we want either. Especially when we think about, we look around our sanctuary here and we think about the people who come in, and we want Lakeview to be a place for everybody, right? Where everybody can connect to the life-giving love of God, and not have to worry about, I'm actually not a coffee person, so I don't know if I can fit in at Lakeview. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a tea person. Oh no, what's going to happen when I come there and they're coffee people? So tea people, we love you. Just in case that's not clear, we prefer coffee, but we love you.
I drink lots of tea too, though.
You do drink lots of tea, and there was a time in my life where I drank a lot of tea, and then I discovered how much more flavorful coffee is. But that's my preference, right? And I think that's where I want us to start by looking back and thinking is, how often do we make what is a preference our like number one thing? And if you don't prefer things the same way as me, we can't be friends. And it's just preference.
Or even that sense of ultimatum of like, you're either for us or against us. There's no middle, right? Like being able to realize that there's a better body that happens and a better understanding that will happen when you have actually a variety of voices being able to speak into something. If we can agree on theology, but if we can disagree on coffee and colors and schemes and all of those things that, and what to do with your free time and, what's the best parenting method, all of those things, when you have that variety, or even when you have differences, sometimes it's actually better for us, because actually I would just assume that all tea is terrible, but I've also been brought around to that by friends who love tea. And I think that's actually a good thing.
And I think in the context of church, of following Jesus, the goal has to be Jesus, right? Like, how do we make Jesus known? How do we proclaim his name? And I might think this way is more important. You might think this way is more important, but we're both going towards the goal of Jesus being known and proclaimed, and trying to get know him better. And as we do, we can recognize that, you're pursuing Jesus in a way that I didn't really recognize was as beneficial as it is when I was stuck in my own. So Well, and to get us back to the passage in a different way, right? The religious leaders came to Jesus and essentially asked him to choose sides. Are you going to be pro-Rome or pro-Israel, right? Are you for us or are you for them? And he worked his way out of that by helping or trying to point them towards where they see the image, right? And you brought us around to this, right? Where do we see the image of God? Because when Jesus had them look at the money, they saw the image of the emperor. And you've kind of brought us into then thinking, well, where do we see the image of God? So I guess that's maybe something for us to think about then too, is where have we seen the image of God recently? And not even, maybe wherever however far back you want to go. Like, where has been a place where recently you've seen the image of God at work or, just in the world around you? I've been challenged to see the image of God in each person that I encounter, right? Because they are image bearers. So what is it? Even the person that's the hardest to love, like say, you have somebody, whenever you talk, you get in a controversy or whatever. What is it that this person reflects God? So let's say you're both, you're both really hit button heads. Well, I could probably see the image of God in the tenacity, right? Like, you just kind of look for, I don't know, those are some things that I've been challenged by. I do, like, the first person that comes to mind when you say that is my wife. I see the image of God in her, just in how I see her interact with my kids and with me, and just, her love, and that's so obvious. I see it in my kids. I see it in you guys. So
Right.
yeah. I don't know. That's a broad answer, but
Well, but I think it's a good answer. Dare I say the right answer. But also, and I think you were leading us in this way in the sermon, to see it in the mirror too, right? And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we go either way with that.
Yeah.
We either really struggle to see ourselves
Yes.
as image bearers.
Very true.
God has made me in His image, because if we're struggling with self-worth or anything in that nature, then we can fail to see it in us. But some of us go the other direction, and our egos are pretty healthy, or too healthy, I guess, to the other far extent, and we only see it in ourselves and fail to see it in others. Or we only see it in people when we see them, when we see goodness in them. So I see the image of God when my kids are getting along, but when they're fighting, or when they're not doing what I tell them, or they're, then we struggle. Or with that person, whoever it is, that person that we are in conflict with, can we still see the image of God in them? And I think that's what you were just saying a minute ago, right? Is that can be the struggle. And I think we all have those people or times or scenarios where we just don't necessarily see the person in the image of God. And I think so. After listening to the sermon, and I would love to hear, Kevin, your thoughts on this in general, but my big thing that I came away with was, yes, I need to look in the mirror and see the image of God. And I think that should motivate me to live my life in a certain way and find a sense of purpose and value and hold myself to something. But also, when I look at others and I see the image of God in them, that ultimately needs to lead me to want things for them that will lead to their flourishing. Because how can I suppress the image of God in someone else if I am not living in accordance with a way that leads to their prospering, their ability to live a healthy and safe life. And so, Kevin, what were some of your final thoughts or takeaways from that?
Yeah, so even just going back to the Genesis thing where God said, let us make mankind in our image.
Yeah.
So it almost points us directly to within us, there is an image of the Godhead, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that each of these three persons who are distinct actually also have a relationship and a unity there as well too. And then right away, I think I am pointed to my marriage as well too, that in the things that, I might feel like I'm really good at this, but then my wife actually offers that balance in the same way that, Jesus is the physical representation of God himself, that there's that relationship there, not that God couldn't show up, but God chose to show up through Jesus. So in the same way, okay, I am working on this side of parenting and not realizing this whole other side of parenting that my wife is actually doing and taking care of, and that together actually, as we are becoming one, that we actually do a better job representing God, representing Christ and his church, and doing all that in realization that me individually, I am a representation of the image of God, but also even as our marriage is together and balanced and all of those things, that actually we're putting God on display as well too. That's kind of the first thing. The second thing, though, is similar to what you said, that we don't talk a lot about enemies, I think, these days. Like just jumping into just a random psalm, and it's just going on and on about God, would you just smash them and just knock them over, because it just would make everything all right. And this is that plea from the psalmist and David and all of that, because he's in those difficult situations. And I begin to think about maybe not enemies, but people that I just can't stand. Let's say maybe in a more theoretical sense on Twitter.
Right.
Or something like that, or some sort of celebrity. Let's just leave it at that, because I think we can all picture somebody or something like that, and the realization that God has actually taken himself and stamped it onto that person. I then should be immediately ashamed to say I actually hate that person, or I am disgusted with that person, or the world would be better off, if we didn't listen to that person. Because if the same image is placed on me and stamped on me and stamped on that person, that God still has the opportunity and ability and desire to probably do something amazing through them, no matter what terrible choices I think that they are making right now, and that God still has that opportunity. And so the amount of times where we just want to write people off, I think is just, we don't understand how far down the road of dishonoring what I think is a very Genesis 1.
Well, and that totally brings to mind a quick line from a guy named Mike Erie that he's had one time on. He was a guest on the Holy Post podcast, and one of the hosts was beginning down a path of denouncing someone and vilifying them, if you will. Yeah. And he just shut it down real quick, real fast. Said, "Well, hold on now. That person bears the image of God." And it turned the conversation not to all of a sudden, oh yeah, hey, that person who's doing all these things that we disagree with, that we think is unhealthy, that we think is harmful, is suddenly a good person. No, but it tamed the language, so that instead of vilifying or seeing that person as having no possibility for redemption, suddenly going, oh, wait a minute, actually, they are redeemable. Oh, well, actually, Jesus died for them. Oh, actually, no one is beyond the love of God that couldn't be brought back. And sometimes when we begin vilifying others, then that's where actually we place them in this other category, where they can't be brought back. And it's like, well, no, that's not biblical. That's not what we believe.
Because that's sorry. Go.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think that's a pretty. We've talked about this before. An us-them mentality that we seem to, in our culture, not just in our churches, but in our culture, we seem to do a lot, and it seeps into our church too. Well, those people, right?
Right.
And we talk about the people that do this, or the people that think this way, or the people that, and we talk about them as if they are less than, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think you're kind of bringing up.
That's part of it, yeah.
And they have the image of God, so why are we talking about them as if they're
right? And an easy example would be to say, politician X, and you've all thought of someone. Some of us might think of the same person. Some of us might be thinking of very different people. But you've all thought of someone. But what we sometimes don't realize is that we feel the same way about certain groups of people. Like the homeless, or people with mental illness, or people addicted to drugs, or people of certain ethnicities, or whatever. We all probably have a blindness to how we view a different group in that way, and we're not always aware of it. And that's, I think, part of what I felt, challenged by, to think about, okay, is there a group of people that I still view as other, that I still, that have not fully seen the image of God in them? And that's where I think we need to take some time and consider this week. And probably, because as I said, it's a blindness, we need other people in our life to speak into it and say, well, actually, you have that about whatever, maybe it's a younger generation even, or an older generation, or there's so many different options that you could be your group X. That is just, it's a blindness that we have. Or we might even think, oh no, I totally love that group, but our language betrays that we don't. Sometimes happens too. And so that's, I think, what we need to work on. Kevin, you were trying to cut in there a little bit ago.
I forgot that one. I moved on to this one. But also realizing, okay, so what we're also, for the most part, talking about is a sense of grace that God comes at humanity with. Like we are to approach in the same way, because if we were made in the image of God, God died for us while we were still sinners, right? Terrible people, and yet he said, actually, I love that one. And I think that's very much what we're talking about. But I think also there is times too when we also have to balance that out and say, okay, are we talking about salvation, mercy, grace, all of that? Or are we talking about doctrine and stuff like that? Because there is times also where that does need to be balanced. Okay, here's my quote unquote enemy. I love that guy. Man, he frustrates me, but I love him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to elevate what he says.
Oh, right.
Or, right, like that there's still balance to that as well, too.
Course, yeah.
To say, you know what, we're going to disagree on this, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean, because I think this is what I see in this whole section of Mark where Jesus is talking about his authority. He's talking about this feast that he throws. He's talking about this section. And I think he's talking in a larger sense about this is God's love for humanity. This is God setting the table and saying to every single person, come and sit at the table.
Yeah.
And the Pharisees keep wanting to say, well, you're right, we're wrong on this way other issue. And he's like, you're still out to lunch on that, whatever. Here's a quick answer for this temple tax or the imperial tax, all of that. That actually is going to give you a non-answer. Here's something more important. Like what you said at the beginning, Jeff, Jesus is the root. Jesus is the core. Jesus is still the straight line in the sand. I heard it said that Jesus is the ruler that you put right next to like a bendy stick to see how crooked that little stick is. Jesus is that straight line ruler to help us know what is straight, so that we can say, okay, here is truth. It's just not any truth, but like here is that straight line. Jesus is the point of all this, but that doesn't mean that we're not saying we're in this together. God made us all in his image, that we're probably needing to work a whole lot more on mercy and justice than we often think we are. And I think that's kind of Jesus's point too.
Absolutely. That's a great thought to leave with. And so Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And church, we'd like to announce now Lakeview is now releasing Baptist bucks so that you will have some currency that has Lakeview on it so you know what to give us. No, we're totally kidding. That's 100% fake. We would never do that. That's not what we're about. But we do want, hopefully, to spark some conversation so that, the people that are in your life, we're able to view them the way God views them. As cherished.
Not just the people in your life.
Not just people, but everybody in generally. But man, when you're bumping into someone in the hallway today, or you're at a stoplight and you're like looking around, or wherever it is, that you would begin to see people the way God sees them, as cherished possessions made in his image. And that would inform then how we live our lives. And so I know that is something that goes into the thought process as we prepare programs around here, as we think about Sunday morning, as we pray over, who will be coming in and who won't, and the people we need to reach out to, and all of that. We're not, we as pastors, we don't look at people as a number. We look at people as valued, cherished possessions in the eyes of God. And so thank you for calling us your church and being part of that. We do have some things coming up that you need to be aware of. One of them, most urgently, I guess we could say, is that in spring break, we have our drama skills camp coming up for those who are grade 4 to grade 12. And you've got like 1 week left to register. So go to the website, lakeviewheightsbaptist.com, and see more information there and get signed up for that. It's just a afternoon program. It's just a few days, just the 5 afternoons, and to help prepare some dramatic skills. And then we've got more information coming out in the next little bit about what summer is going to look like and all of that. But that's the most pressing one, if you will, if you've been thinking about it, or if this is the first time you're hearing about it. Don't wait. Just a few days left to sign up for that. On the website. Then I know that there's something coming April 1st, but do we have, I feel like there was one other March thing.
March 12th.
March 12th.
We just want to get people together and just hang out. And sometimes we come and we do our Sunday morning, and then we just kind of off and we're done. And we don't make a lot of connections, and sometimes even just sitting down to a meal. So very simply, we want to keep it simple. We have a handful of people who are going to be making a pot of soup, and we want you to just stay after the service on March 12th and just join us and sit with somebody you wouldn't normally sit with and connect with them and create a commonality and a common bond and say, actually, we're part of the same family. And just have a soup and a bun together and just enjoy a lunchtime and then head home and get on with your day.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I think we can all sometimes be a little awkward when we see someone that we've kind of seen around a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you're only ever been online with us, we're not this huge group. Like, we're not. But so even now, as a smaller church, we look around, we're like, they've come like 4 or 5 times and I haven't met them yet. This is a great opportunity for that. Just go. We teach this to people all the time. Start with, hi, my name is, and go from there. And it's a great opportunity for that. The thing I was going to bring up is that April 1st is a Saturday. This is no joke. We have our next West Kelowna-wide parenting seminar. And it's on guiding teens into healthy sexuality, healthy relationships, healthy life choices. And that's going to be at Potter's House Church. We're going to have more information on the website and coming out to you in the bulletin in the next few days. But registration should be going live for that any day now. And so probably already is. It's like $12 for you to come to that, and it's an afternoon.
This is for teens or parents or families?
This is for parents to come to, because so many are like, oh no, I've got to have that talk with my kid, and I don't know how to do that, or and there's some helping us in that, and so how do we do that? Now, the other side of it is, if you're waiting until your teenager is like 16 to have any kind of conversations about this,
it's too late.
It's way too late.
Well, you can still do it, but
yes,
you want to start early.
Don't delay. Act today. But really, even kindergarten in some ways, there's kindergarten appropriate conversations in this.
Yep.
So the heart of the message is focused at teenagers, so parents of teenagers, but for those of us who maybe have kids who are entering that zone, or if you're like, okay, my kid's 8, well, eventually they will be in that zone, then it's worth coming out to.
Even young, I would say that preparation from the young age is so key, right?
Yeah, and as parents, if we can learn how to talk about this issue and become comfortable with it, then when our kids have questions, it's not this big, awkward, impossible thing to talk about. That way, when it's like, hey, so-and-so at school said this, okay, let's talk about this, instead of, here, let me get the other parent, and maybe we can actually have open conversation.
Yeah, I imagine a big part of that will be, don't make it one conversation, make it an ongoing conversation, right? That's probably going to be a part of
it is kind of one of the titles of the talk is 1,000 little conversations.
There you go. Yeah.
So
okay.
I didn't want to give away too much.
Sorry.
No, that's it. No, you're absolutely. So we'll Darlene Unruh is the name of the presenter. Lakeview, if you've been part of Lakeview for a while, you might recognize that. She did this talk here right before early 2020. I think the last youth event we had before COVID shut things down was she presented with the youth a version of this talk. Okay. And a week earlier it was with parents, or the day before? Day before it was a version of this talk with parents. But that's April 1st. And again, more information on the website. It'll be in the bulletin. I guess we're not even calling the bulletin anymore. The email, the weekly email is the right word I'm looking for.
LHBC Life.
Life, thank you. We're all about life here.
That's right.
Anyways, so I think anything else that I'm missing? We've rambled on for a good half hour now, and we don't want to take any more life from you. No, just kidding. Thank you for sharing some time with us today. And whether you've had tea, coffee, water, anything else, it's just great to spend a few moments, and we look forward to seeing you real soon.